The questionnaire you submitted for today asks you to list and describe the, quote, 10 most significant litigated matters you personally handled. And among the cases that you listed that you personally handled are 3 voting rights cases and a desegregation case. Last week, I should note, 3 attorneys who worked at DOJ and who actually brought 3 of the 4 cases wrote an op-ed piece in which they say, quote, "We can state categorically that Sessions had no substantive involvement in any of them." If a lawyer has just his name added to a document here or a filing there, that lawyer would be misrepresenting his record if he said he was personally handled these cases. 2 of the lawyers who wrote the op-ed have also submitted testimony for today's hearing, Mr. Jerry Hebert and Mr. Joe Rich. Mr. Hebert says, quote, says he, quote, litigated personally 2 of the 4 cases you listed. He said, "I can state with absolute certainty that Mr. Sessions did not participate personally in either." Mr. Rich worked on 1 of the 4 cases you listed. He said, quote, "I never met him at that time nor any other time, and he had no input to the case." These represent 3 of the 4 cases that you claimed that were among the top 10 cases that you personally handled.
Sessions denied calling the National Council of Churches and the NAACP un-American.
My opinion is they have not. They may have taken positions that I consider to be adverse to the security interest of the United States.
Does that make them un-American?
No, sir, it does not.
No. Does that make the positions un-American?
No.
Sessions also refuted other key statements he is alleged to have made, including that he thought Ku Klux Klan members were okay until he learned some were marijuana smokers.
This assertion is ludicrous. I detest the Klan.
And he denied that he called a black attorney, Thomas Figures, boy.
I state categorically that I have never called Mr. Figures boy.
CNN has just published a story, and I'm telling you this about a news story that's just been published. I'm not expecting you to know whether or not it's true or not, but CNN just published a story alleging that the intelligence community provided documents to the president-elect last week that included information that, quote, Russian operatives claimed to have compromising personal and financial information about Mr. Trump. These documents also allegedly stated, quote, there was a continuing exchange of information during the campaign between Trump surrogates and intermediaries for the Russian government. Now, again, I'm telling you this as it's coming out, so, you know. But if it's true, it's obviously extremely serious. And if there is any evidence that anyone affiliated with the Trump campaign communicated with the Russian government in the course of this campaign, what will you do?
Senator Franken, I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or 2 in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians, and I'm unable to comment on it.
Very well.
I did not have communications with the Russians.
Senator Sessions, does it concern you that our future commander-in-chief is so much more willing to accept what Julian Assange says instead of the conclusions of our intelligence agencies? And why do you think President Trump finds Assange trustworthy?
Senator Franken, I'm not able to answer that. I've not talked to the President-elect about any of these issues, and it is often inaccurate what gets printed in the papers.
Well, back in 2010, back when WikiLeaks was publishing stolen American diplomatic cables and military secrets, you voiced concern about the Obama administration's response. You said that WikiLeaks publishing sensitive documents should be, quote, pursued with the greatest intensity. You said, quote, the president from on down should be crystal clear on this, and I haven't seen that. I mean, he comes out of the left, the anti-war left. They've always glorified people who leak sensitive documents. Now he's the commander-in-chief, so he's got a challenge. President-elect Trump, by contrast, said, quote, WikiLeaks, I love WikiLeaks. Do you believe that by holding up Julian Assange, who traffics in leaked and stolen documents, often classified documents, as a legitimate source of information, that President-elect Trump is glorifying people who leak sensitive documents?
Well, I will say this, that if Assange participated in violating the American law, then he is a person subject to prosecution and condemnation.
Well, we know that in regard to what he did in 2010, and yet the President-elect said, WikiLeaks, I love WikiLeaks. Doesn't it seem like perhaps if you weren't sitting before us today as an Attorney General nominee, and if President Obama was publicly embracing Julian Assange, that perhaps you might take a more critical view?
As a member of the Senate, as you and I remain for hopefully not too much longer, depends on you and your colleagues, but I feel it's a lot easier to be vigorous and outspoken. If you begin to think about the awesome responsibility of serving as an Attorney General with the possibility of having to handle certain cases, you need to be more cautious about what you say. So I think it's just not appropriate for me to be the person for you to seek political responses from.
Senator
Okay,
Cruz.
I am out of time. I will try to stick around for one more quick round.
Jeff Sessions was considered too racist, too controversial in the 80s to be confirmed for a federal judgeship.
That was a while ago. He's been I mean, what we've just heard is that he's
Well, I'm
been a
not sure
senator
there's a
since
statute of limitation for racism.
I did not have communications with the Russians.